Orange team.
Hey guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan.
And this is the Board Game Rundown. And today we are going to be doing a review of Astra. This is Mind Clash Play's first straight to retail release. This is a 2 to 5 player game. It takes between 30 minutes to 90 minutes to play. And we're going to be doing a review on this game today. If you like the content that you see, make sure you like, subscribe to our channel because we do reviews, unboxings, live streams, top 10s. We got it all. So don't want you to miss it, including our giveaways.
Heyo.
Okay, so Astra. First, when you think of a Mind Clash game, you think of something a little bit heavier and a little bit crunchier. And this isn't. And that's actually one of the reasons I was curious about this game, because they weren't sending it to Kickstarter, and they were going straight to retail with it. And it looked like a lighter, easier to learn game, and it certainly is. So we're going to jump into how you play it, the components, final thoughts. Finally, we'll give it a score. Okay, so in Astra, we are astronomers, and we're actually trying to discover constellations. You'll see a lot of familiar constellations that you've seen before, such as Capricorn or Taurus. And we all start with these 5 little stardust on our player board. And there's really only 2 things you can do. It's funny because when I saw the markers, I don't know if anyone called it this, but I just assumed it was going to be a roll and write.
Oh, sure.
And it's not. It's not a roll and write. You use your marker to actually mark territory control style on these constellations. So you spend your stardust to do that. That's the main thing you do on your turn. So if I wanted to mark on, let's say, Capricorn here, I have to start on the star that is circled. So that's this one here. And I mark as many stardust as I'm willing to spend. Let's say I spend 3. I get to make 3 markings on that star. Then it's Dan's turn.
Yay.
He's probably going to discover. So by doing so, he also gets to mark as many stardust as he wants to spend on one of these stars. But why are we doing this? Well, as soon as one of the constellations gets filled, that is, one constellation is marked all the way through, the person who put the last mark will actually gain this constellation into their tableau, which is the main way you're going to score points, because this card could give you 2 points at the end of the game as long as it has not been activated, which we'll talk about. But if Dan has at least just 1 marking on this card, he also gets a boon. And that's the interesting crux about this game, is that, yeah, it's good to gain these cards because they are going to score you points and they'll give you abilities to use. But the boons at the bottom of these cards are very interesting. They're going to give you points. They're going to give you more stardust. And obviously, as you can see, you need stardust to get more markings on the card. So more stardust is very good. That lengthens your turns. You can get these little discovery tokens. They are an additional action instantly. So that's bam, 2 actions whenever you want to use them back to back. You also have boons that give you more wisdom. So if you look at the bottom of the player board, we'll go ahead and have Dan show that off. The player board shows you how much stardust you start with 5. So you have an income of 5. That's not a storage. So if you do the other thing on your turn, which is resting, you're going to collect that much stardust. So Dan has his marked up to 7. He'd collect 7. If he already had stardust in his supply, he'd still gain over 7. So that's a full income, not a limit. Okay. The other thing at the bottom that I mentioned is that wisdom, and wisdom determines how many cards you can hold. You start by being able to hold 2 cards, but if you have 2 cards and want to gain a third, you're going to have your wisdom marked to the righter edge of that third card to be able to gain the third card. If you were to happen to gain a third card and your limit was still 2, you have to discard one of them. Okay, so you continue doing that, going through this deck, replenishing these cards as soon as one of them has been discovered, and you go until you hit the game end card, which is placed in the deck depending how many players are in the game. That's really that's really how you play. It's a fairly straightforward to play game. There's a little minutia I'll jump into a bit. So everybody gets these totally different final in-game final scoring cards. And you're also looking at on these cards the element on the top left of them that gives you kind of a set collecting aspect. So like if you have 4 win cards marked off, for example, Dan's got 4 win cards marked off. That's 11 points at the end of the game. Every set of 4 elements can give you 11 points. Or columns, 1 of each. 3 in a column can give you 3 points, or 4 in a column can give you 6 points. Okay. So that's one of the major ways to score points. The other way to score points is a lot of the boons. Actually, every card has points as an options for your boons. Additionally, you'll get points for how high your Stardust income is. You'll get points for how high your wisdom is. And the other interesting thing about this too is that these cards you gain, I briefly mentioned that they have abilities. And that's what's cool. It's kind of like you're deciding, do I want to be in second on this one and get the boon? Or do I want to gain the card and get the ability? The abilities can be instant abilities, like instantly gaining one of these discovery tokens. You've got others that you activate and then it's only good for that turn. So you tap it, and then you have to refresh it to use it again. Also, if it's tapped, it doesn't score at the end of the game. So you're forced into refreshing that card, which, by the way, you do when you reset. So when you reset, you'll gain your Stardust income. You'll also move this token, and then you'll refresh all the cards that match where you moved this thing from. It just goes around this wheel and has the 4 elements on it. I think that's really everything.
I think that's a pretty darn good job.
Fairly comprehensive, huh?
Yeah, for a Mind Clash, a Mind Clash game, you'll catch on pretty fast. There's not, it's a simple game, but it is a deeper game than you might think at the same time.
Yeah.
We'll go into that very shortly.
Yep, absolutely. So now that you've got your overview, let's go into components.
Sure, and honestly, there's not like a crazy amount to say here, right? Like, I mean, people can see what they're getting, and I'll say overall, I'm pretty impressed with what you got here. These cards are like plastic cards because you're doing dry erase. They feel very nice, and obviously you can tell by the art style here. I know I keep showing off the exact same card. Maybe I should just grab a different one so that people.
I got some other ones over.
Oh
there
yeah,
for
duh!
you.
I got a whole deck.
I gave him some.
So you can see some more of the art here, but I mean, first of all, I just really like constellations. I really like space, like in general. And like, looking through a telescope is really cool to me and everything. I'm not good at finding constellations, but I like the way they look when drawn. And I really like this. Not only is this a very attractive art style, and even like typeface, I really like the font and everything that they used here. But also the iconography is so dead simple. They did a really good job with the iconography here, with how the points work and the stars. You can see there's 3 different types of stars here. Really, there's only 2, but you have the common stars, and then the circled one there is the starting common star, like Mike said. And then these ones give you discovery. I don't remember the name.
The wisdom down here.
Sorry, they give you the wisdom.
Good.
And I can't remember what those stars are called. But,
I can't either. Non-commons.
Yeah, they're not common. But, really good, attractive design there. This player board, rather, is extremely easy to use. I mean, you just, whatever you have to the furthest of the right on the tracks is what you have. And then you got your scoreboard going around. Now, most of your points will happen towards the end. But still, you've got your score going around that you can keep track of. And I actually, when I scored it, had a thing where basically it was kind of cool because I was able to just like, okay, how many points did I get from my thing? 14. So I just mark at 14. Right. And then I'm just like, okay, how many points did I get from this? 8. So I just add 8 to that and just mark there. And you're almost like making checkpoints. with the way I was doing it. And it was just really easy to do with the way the scoring and math worked in this game, I felt. So yes, you can see 8 million dots on the board, right? But I don't exactly suggest marking every single one. I think that's a little overkill for what you're trying to do here. But yeah, obviously acrylic gems are always nice. I add those to my games a lot of the time for currency. Dune, I've done that. I just think they look really nice, especially if they're thematic.
This is a color of those I've never seen, actually.
Yeah, sure. Like peach. I don't know what I would call that, but
I don't either.
But yeah, so again, I know you're going to tread a lot of the same water as me for components because overall, I'm very impressed. The markers work really well. They're not the highest quality markers. These aren't Long John Silver, whatever that game's called. Those markers are incredible. Twilight, the Roll and Write, Twilight Inscription, amazing markers, right? These aren't those, but they also don't need to be. They want the price of this game to be a nice little affordable game, and I have had no markers die on me, which is nice. So anyway.
Speaking of price and the marker component, it was something I wanted to touch on in a slightly different way. I found myself wondering, is the marker the best way to go about this game?
Okay.
But if you say we're to be putting cubes on the cards, the price of this game shoots up.
Right.
It shoots up a lot. Or I wonder if, that's the only other thing I would think of. The marker, like I was even in the play that we had, there were certain colors that, and I'm not colorblind, but like gray and black, if you didn't make your circle big enough, sometimes are a little hard to tell. The green's kind of dark. So we were doing shapes on the cards. So even slightly colorblind people, it might be a little interesting on how that would work for this. I suggest drawing shapes on the cards or something of that nature. But yeah, cubes jack the price up.
Right.
And this is better as a less expensive type game with few components. I agree. Love the art and cards. It really was one of the things that drew me to this game. It's why I looked into it and bought it. And they are good quality. They are that plastic kind of coating, which you need to be able to write on them with the dry erase markers. But the art's great. I mean, I just love blue. I do like constellations. Right. The theme is cool. And so, yeah, the components for what you get and being able to get this game at like $30 and under, I think is really solid.
No, I fully agree. Yep.
No complaints on the components whatsoever.
Yeah, sorry if you came in for a component. Hey, it's not happening right now.
No, it's pretty solid. And the box is definitely bigger than what it needs to be, but there's a lot of air in this box.
It also helps them show off the art.
Yeah. I mean, the art's cool. So it's a great looking box. I don't mind displaying it on my shelf for sure.
There is no insert, right?
No.
I always like asking that. And I don't feel like the rule book was bad in any way, but I also wouldn't say it was amazing, right?
Yeah,
like we learned the game
issues
from it. It was totally fine. There were a couple things we had to go back and look up. Yeah. So overall, no complaints, but you're not going to hear me say like, "Wow, Mind Clash, yeah, hit it out of the park with that rule book." It's good.
And just briefly, for one, Bob will appreciate the shape. It's longer than you think it should be. It's a 30-page rule book, but it's only because they go into detail on every single card in the game.
Right.
So every card, I'm on page 23 now. So you've got 8 pages just on card descriptions, but I like that they give you detail on every single card. It is necessary.
Sure.
And there's additional stuff for 2 players in there too.
Yep. We won't be covering that today, but if you're interested, it's not hard.
Check the rule book.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get into our final thoughts.
What you thinking, Mike?
What am I thinking?
What you thinking?
I think it's a cool game. It's not one of my favorites, but it is a cool game. It has some interesting things going on, and I'd say there's something unique in this that I haven't seen before. And that's the way that this area majority is done. And this is cool. There's some interesting decisions to be made. Like you're making your marks on your cards and you're like, okay, well, sure, I could go all the way down to the bottom here and use up 4 Stardust, but well, then the very next person would gain the card. So, okay, I don't want to do that. Instead, let me just go up this way. Now there's 2 different marks available. So if Dan marks the other, he knows he's giving me the card. And what's interesting is how that's woven into this theme. What other theme could you have used where you have these strange branching lines to create those decisions I just mentioned? You have to have branches off of these lines to create that variance of where now I can go multiple different ways and players are forced to pick which way they want to scratch after that. What, maybe a tree theme? Like,
sure.
How else do you make a game that has these branching lines and make it thematic? I don't know.
No, it's a great point, and it actually does cover something that I'm not sure we explained in the brief how to play, that when you mark on cards, you have to continue in a straight line.
Yes.
So that's why what he's explaining happens, because by making those holes, you can't mark one dot and jump to another. Same thing with you can't start turning right and then get the one that was to the left as well. Once you start marking your things, which is why the discovery tokens come into play so much, is because I can start making one straight line in one direction and then discard a discovery token to immediately go the other direction as well, because I'm starting a second turn. Now that's 2 instances of me paying as well. So like if the first one costs 4 Stardust, then the second turn starts and I owe 2 more Stardust, right, to complete the other path. So that is why what he's talking about happens, and it is a fascinating part of the game for sure, that like I feel like when I first started playing I didn't fully understand, right? And the more I played, the deeper that mechanic came to me, and the more your turn would start and you go, how interesting, there's so many options.
Just one card, and the way they have like, this one's got 10 scratches on it, this one's got 7, and maybe it only branches out into 2 spots. Some of your more complicated, look at Taurus here. Put that one up there. Look at all the branches on this one. So just look at, like, say you filled up the top 3. You can't mark anything else. So, okay, do you start working your way down towards the base? You know, there's so many different branches there. And so no matter what, somebody has to make a decision, like, who is getting this card? And it makes the observe action really interesting. It adds a whole extra layer to what seems like a very simple mechanic, but the way you're manipulating that to figure out if you want the boon or you want someone else to take it, and how many dots and which branches you go down. Really cool mechanic I've never seen a game pull off. So cheers to that. I mean, other than that, the gameplay, my con for this game, we played it with 3 players. It didn't overstay its welcome. I feel like even with the teach, we were around an hour. And honestly, if it didn't feel like it. We might have been a little shy of an hour, even with the teach. It says 20 minutes per player on the box. And I'm just concerned, if you play this game with 5 people and it goes an hour and a half, is this the game I want to play for an hour and a half? It's a good game, but I wouldn't want it to go much more than an hour. That would be a knock I would have on this. Also, the cards, there were multiple cards where we found the abilities were exactly the same.
Yeah.
The only difference was the constellation was different, so it's a different puzzle.
And the
elements.
And the boons
the
that go
boons
with
and the
it.
elements are different. So while that does provide a slightly different strategy, it doesn't necessarily increase replayability, because it feels, oh, I've seen that ability before.
Even though it does set up a completely different scenario, you do just kind of inherently lose a little bit of interest when you see, oh, that's the same ability.
We saw that one.
Yeah,
even in the one game we played, we're like, oh yeah, that's the same as that one.
Right. Or some are very similar, but change, like, it might literally be the same ability, but one is like, on your turn, and the other is when you gain the card, or something like that, right?
Right.
Like, so like, it does lose a little bit of interest factor for that.
Yeah.
Also, to jump on your point about the 20 minutes per player thing, I completely agree with everything you said. My one thing I'll add is this game also, because of the interesting area control thing we talked about, can really suffer from AP. There are a lot of options for people to do out there.
Yeah.
You not only have to pick the card that you want to mark on, which has a lot going into it of like, well, I might not win this one, so which boons do I care about more? Or math it out. Maybe I do mark certain ones on this one, knowing how many people are probably going to mark on it so that I can finish it later. Okay, so do I want the ability rather than the boons? Okay, now I'll mark on the card. What direction do I go on the card? What's the best option to go here? Oh, I have a discovery token. Do I spend it on this card or do I wait for another card? Maybe maybe I'm not interested in this card and I mark on it to make other people think I'm interested in this card so that I can discovery on my next turn and finish a different card. There's a lot going on here that can, like, you can watch someone's turn start and they just grind to a halt as all the decisions start happening.
And that could ramp up with more players.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I said I completely agree that I going above 3 players is scary to me.
I want to try it.
Yeah.
It's mainly about that play time I'm concerned about, but it's funny because there's only 2 actions, and one of them you're only going to take every few turns.
And one of them is basically skip your turn.
Yes. But that one action has so many interesting variables into it.
So, yeah, I'm also like Mike. I'm a little mixed. I mean, overall, I did enjoy the experience. I liked the game. I would gladly play it again. There are just some things there that I'm like, okay, how many people we're playing with? Who's playing? What cards are showing up? Like, did I see all these cards last time? There's just a lot of things going into it that aren't perfect, I guess is what I'm trying to say for sure. But... yeah, if you want to try this out, again, the thing that I keep saying ever since we played it, I said it to Mike on the way here today and everything, this game gets more and more interesting the more you play. Because as the rules are kind of sinking in and not just the rules are sinking in, it's not a complicated game, maybe you'll get it immediately, but seeing how the repercussions of your choices affect future turns and figuring out how to effectively draw on these constellations and stuff, the game gets deeper and deeper and more interesting and slightly slower as you go on because everyone's thinking harder and harder. And so I just think that when you first play the game, you probably won't feel the same you do during your last turn of the game, I guess is what I'm saying. It's going to feel different, a little deeper. And I say good job Mind Clash for that because their games are known to be very, like, I don't know if chunky is the right word, very deep, very
crunchy.
Crunchy. And when I first sat down to play this game, I was like, oh, they did a roll and write, like what you were saying, right? And then it's like, okay, it's not a roll and write. Oh, interesting. This is like an area control game.
Yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting area control game. Oh, wait. So what if I do this? Like, a lot of that was happening. And so I say good job to them for making a game that looked very light, deeper than you expect.
Yeah.
But that's where I'll end my little rant, I think.
Sounds good to me. Let's go ahead and go to our scores.
Okay, guys, so we're going to score this game from 1 to 10. At the end, it's not going to mean as much because there's only 2 of us, but at the end, we're going to average them because we like Board Game Rundown to have 1 score, but we also like to share all of our individual opinions because some of you might agree with points that some of us pointed out more than others, right, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Mike, you want me to go first since it's your game? I'm totally okay with that.
Go for it. I'm just making sure the calculator is out because even though it's 2 scores,
hey,
let's be certain here.
Check your work.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a pretty simple, positive, like, I want to say middle of the road, but it's like, it's the classic middle of the road positive score for Dan. I would recommend this game. I want to play it again. I had a good time with it. It's not my favorite. At the end of the day, I was impressed. I came into it not knowing what I was going to think other than it was pretty, and I was impressed, and I'm going to fall on a 7 for Astra for Mind Clash Play?
Mind Clash Play.
Play. Okay. So, yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay, so I know the math already.
Really? Okay.
I don't need the calculator. Mine, I'm coming in at a 7.5. I definitely recommend that you try this game. I mean, heck, it's cheap enough that you might as well just buy this game if you've got the money for it. Usually I say an 8 is a game I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going out and buying this. But again, my small complaints is just it may overstay its welcome with 4 and 5 players. I haven't experienced that, though.
Right.
So, just a caveat, most people when they play a game that's an hour and a half long would probably want a bit more of an experience than this, but that's not taking anything away from it. The decisions are interesting. Some of these mechanics are totally unique to anything I've seen. The components are really solid. You get a good game for the money. The price point is just about perfect. I don't really have any complaints other than, the replayability may suffer from seeing the same cards over and over, and the length at higher player counts. It's not going to blow you away, but this is a fun game, and it's got solid mechanics and lots of interesting decisions throughout. So, 7.5 and a 7 gives us
a 9.
Are we rounding up or rounding down?
We round up to the tenths.
Okay, so that means the rundown score is 7.3. I think that's pretty fair. That's above a recommend.
Yeah.
Which
fits
it's not
for
a
what I'm saying.
strong recommend.
Yeah.
But it is
especially
a game
not
you
from
should
us
play.
because we give a lot of sevens.
We give a lot of but it's a solid game. Definitely check it out again for this price point. I've found other ways to spend $30 worse than this before.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
On other games even. So, yeah, no complaints. Glad we checked it out. So, and I'll also be curious to see what else Mind Clash Play comes up with. This is the first one, so it'll be neat to see these other lighter, straight to retail releases they can come up with after this is a starting point.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so that wraps it up for the board game rundown. I've been Mike.
Dan.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.